Hey, hope you're having an awesome day. So, at the title of this video, Jeff, we're going to look into the idea of total depravity, as really backed up by scripture, and we're going to look at it to the inductive method, if you will. So, um, yeah, so what you see on the screen here, if you go to the description below, there should be a link to the PDF you see. So, open up from my Google Drive, so it does not open up from your computer. But anyway, how I started this, I asked myself the question. You hear, well, first of all, you hear the idea of being spiritually dead, and so well, the Bible already teaches that. And so I started looking up the word spirit, okay, and pulled up this verse right here. And I see the word bondage, and I pulled up verse with the word bondage, okay, and that brought forth this verse right here with the word death in it. Then I looked up death. There's a whole bunch of verses with that. And then that led to the word flesh here. And that led to nature. Okay. And I looked up nature. Okay. Got another verse there. And so that way I would hopefully get a complete picture. I put all this together. You can see here. And um, so now I see here, okay, spirit here and death. Okay. Spirit, bondage, death. And um, one verse that stood out went uh, James 1:15. Then when lust hath conceived, it bring forth sin, and sin, when it finished, bring forth death. So that seemed to fit with the Greek for dead, where the adjective dead, lifeless, subject to death, mortal, and the noun version is dead body, corpse. So, um, yeah, so the idea is once you sin, it'll bring forth death. Okay. So then when you see the word bondage here, um, I think of Pharaoh in the book of Exodus, where God knew in Exodus chapter 3 that Pharaoh had a power control issue. And, it would say that, God hardened his heart. Okay. But when I ask myself the question, how exactly did God harden his heart? And my conclusion based on reading the story is that all it took for Pharaoh to feel that his power and control was threatened, where his sovereignty was jeopardized. Anytime that happened, his heart hardened. He did not want to let that power and control go. And how did I come to that conclusion? A big clue is Exodus chapter 8, where basically, if you let the people go, then we'll stop with the plagues. And so Pharaoh, quote unquote, agreed to that, but he was not exactly an honest man. He would say something just to tickle the ear of the person that he talking with, negotiating with. And so, based on Exodus chapter 8, I realized that it's not like God reached into his innermost being, heart of heart, that way. It was just a sheer miracle that where Pharaoh felt threatened, his power, and that alone caused his heart to harden. And so, maybe you have a different take on that. I don't know, but it reflects that bondage. His bondage is so strong to the point it led to death. He could not let go, and even not just one man, but a whole nation of people. So that really illustrates the bondage here. Okay, and so anyway, going back to the idea of spiritual dead. You see the word spirit here, and you see the word death here. Spirit, bondage, death. So it leads to that, which fits with James 1:15, what he seemed to be said there. It seemed to be kind of consistent. Once conceived, it would bring forth sin, and sin when it's finished, bring forth death. So that seems to be the thing that's going on here. Start here, spirit, bondage, death. That makes sense? Hope that makes sense. And so one thing I want to go over before we actually look into the idea of total depravity, let's look into uh, Romans chapter 2, verse 12 through 15. A lot of people will read verse 14, verse 14 right here, 2:14. They'll read, Gentiles, Jew by nature think contain the law. And they'll just assume, oh, we by nature just do what's right. Okay, there's some people that read it that way. And so I put it together and I realized that verse 12 is actually the foundation to verses 14 and 15. Okay, this is 14 right here, this is 15 right here. Okay, so it's the foundation for the following few verses. Okay, so let's look at verse 12. For as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law. Okay, so that's what drives the understanding of this verse right. This verse right here. In the second half of verse 12, as many as sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. Okay, that's what drives this right here. Okay, so when we read this, Gentile. Now I have red and green. Now red represents flesh and blood, and the green represents those who have the new nature written, where the law is written in their hearts. Okay, it's also here where they experience the spirit of adoption. Okay, that sort of thing, where they receive God's grace. Okay, so there are two different types of Gentiles here. Okay, but you have to look at this from a Jewish perspective. All right, right. So when the Gentile, which have not the law. So this is referring to just the Gentiles who um, who had no idea of the tablets, Moses, the Ten Commandments. They don't have the law at all, the Old Testament, nor they have the laws written in their hearts, which is right here. Okay, these are just Gentile in the red, flesh and blood. Okay, due by nature the thing contained in the law. Okay, so now we need to know which law he's talking about. He already told them to not have the law. Okay, this is from a Jewish perspective. Okay, so then it raises the question, what law are we talking about? And then he repeated again, having not the law. Okay, on both sides says have not the law. Okay, you see that? Okay, and he said are a law unto themselves. So this right here, by nature, they contain the law. What law are you talking about? The law unto themselves. Okay. Then he continued on. Now we're talking about the law written in their hearts. This is those who are part of the new covenant. This is right here. Okay. This is the covenant that we make with the house of Israel. Okay. You have to keep in mind uh, Romans chapter 11, there are Gentile branches that are grafted in. Okay. They become part of that olive tree, which represents Israel. Okay. Remember, Jesus only came for the lost sheep of Israel. Okay. I don't have that verse on here, but it's in John somewhere. Okay. He only came for the lost sheep of Israel. Okay. That includes Gentiles. They're grafted in. Okay. So, alrighty. So now we go to the second part, written in their hearts. Now, this part right here that I just read from verse 14 can also be applicable to this right here. Okay. So written in their hearts by nature they contain the law. The problem is once a person becomes regenerate, then they have two natures. You got the old Adam and the new Adam. Okay. So their conscience also bearing witness in their thought. Meanwhile, accusing or else excusing one another. Okay. So that's kind of reflecting. Maybe you have a different take on this part. The excusing and accusing and excusing. I think that's a reflection of both natures that regenerate will have. They have the old nature and then the new nature. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So, as many have sinned in the law, shall be judged by the law. Okay, they'll be judged by the law written in their hearts. Okay, that's why it's so important that we abide in Him. And I'm preaching myself here, so so hope that makes sense. So now going back to the topic, does it teach total depravity? So I looked up depravity online, and why am I having so much trouble? Okay, so I looked up depravity online and said the innate corruption of human nature due to original sin. So now the word depravity in the Bible, no, it's not. Does that mean we dismiss it? Don't be foolish. Okay, that's simply playing games with yourself. The word depravity, the definition here, The question is the Bible back it up. Okay. The innate corruption of human nature due to original sin. Now, I had already put it together when I was trying to find out the idea of spiritual death. And so I already had these verses in here. You know, you got Romans 8:21. That's in here, right here. Okay. Bondage of corruption. That's right here. Okay. Human nature. It's right here. Okay. That's Ephesians 2:3. Okay. And we got Romans 5:12, original sin, which is right here. Okay. So by having this definition, this word backed up with three verses in one swing, it's an efficient way of using one word to describe three verses. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you think there's a problem with that, okay, it just means you got to go through all three verses to explain what you're trying to say. It's just easier, just use one word to describe it all. Okay, so I think it's fair game to say, yeah, the Bible teaches depravity. Okay, this definition with these verses. Okay, now we get to the word total, which is what the word that Calvinist uses, comprising or constituting a whole. I looked up the definition online, and so I'm trying to make sense. Okay, total here, how that fit with this, and then I realized, okay, the whole of our fallen nature. Okay, what's in red. That's why I have that highlighted in red. So to me, it it seemed to teach total the idea of total depravity based on what we see here. Okay, I know it's very controversial. You know, just that term, total depravity. But sometimes we just got to be honest ourselves. You know, there's things that we don't, some truths that we don't like. But there are people that deny original sin. That's right here. You know, okay, or 5:12 right here. Okay, and so and notice that word for by one man enters sin in the world. Okay, it does not say one woman. Okay, now Eve sinned first, already, but nothing happened. My theory, I'm pretty confident this is right, that with the egg of the female, it does not inherit the sinful nature. It has to go through the male. Um, it carries through the male. Okay, and so Eve, who sinned, her blood, you know, she's a sinner. Her eyes were opened up, but the egg was not affected. Whereas when Adam sinned, then that affected the whole human race. Okay, because it passes on through his blood onto the female. Okay, so that's just my theory. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty right on that, but some people might disagree on that. So anyway, having said that, I hope this all makes sense. You can see what I put together. You hear some things that really puts things in perspective. You know, Romans 3:10 is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. So every person that declared righteous in the Bible, God made them righteous. They were a sinner just like all of us. Um, I think pretty clear on that. But God did something to make a person righteous, and that's the beauty of Jesus Christ, His Spirit of His Son. That's just awesome. So, anyway, I hope that makes sense, and I hope you find this material helpful, and you have an awesome day. Thank you.